This is the Brave New Coin Crypto Conversation, hosted by Andy Pickering.
Hi everyone, Andy Pickering here. I'm your host and welcome to the Crypto Conversation, a Brave New Coin podcast where we talk to the people building the future in the Bitcoin, blockchain and cryptocurrency space. My guests today are Plutus and Obsidian. They are co-founders, I think, of Byzantion, which is an NFT minting and trading platform. It aims to give artists the best place to launch their masterpieces and give collectors the best place to find NFTs. And interestingly, Byzantion is actually the #1 marketplace on Stacks. And if you don't know what Stacks is, well, you should, but I'm sure we'll remind you during the course of today's show. But welcome to the show, Plutus and Obsidian.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Appreciate it, Andy.
All right. Well, it's a pleasure, guys. I think to begin with, why don't we let's just learn a bit about you guys. You've got some intriguing names. Introductions, please.
Yeah, for sure. So Plutus and I, we go way back. We got into crypto, or I tried to get Plutus in crypto about 2012. So we followed the space kind of pretty much from its inception. We came across Stacks in 2017. So they had gone through Y Combinator and had a really interesting idea for decentralizing the internet and then really building out Web3. So that's when we kind of got into the Stacks ecosystem. So starting with DNS and then decentralized storage and decentralized identity. And then this past summer, as the Stacks chain mainnet launched and they finally got their standardization for smart contracts and the testing frameworks for the Clarinet, which is for the Clarity smart contract language, we started to get more and more involved in just the NFT space that was developing around Bitcoin. But we've got backgrounds in tech and finance. So we kind of the interesting journey to bridge from Web 2 to Web 3.
Like Obsidian was saying, he's got a background in tech. I've got a background in the quant from finance, and we both, have been into crypto for a while, but Bitcoin in particular is just interesting to us as a solid base layer, and that's what it ended up attracting us to Stacks back in 2017. And as we saw it develop, saw more and more potential to build on top of Bitcoin through Stacks.
Yeah, that's right. And well, I'd love it if you guys could just give us, for the benefit of any listeners who are less familiar with what Stacks is and how Stacks works. Stacks, of course, formerly known as Blockstack, but now, pioneering the way forward in terms of potential smart contract capabilities and NFTs, all that kind of stuff, but with Bitcoin as the base layer. So I think that it'd be great if one of you guys want to just kind of explain that a bit more, just at a high level.
Yeah, essentially Stacks, you can think of it as Ethereum for Bitcoin, smart contracts for Bitcoin at a high level. So basically anything that you can do with Ethereum, you can do with Bitcoin via Stacks. And basically it makes Bitcoin programmatic. So the way that it works is that all of the transactions on Stacks through a process called proof of transfer, a new kind of consensus algorithm, they all settle to the Bitcoin chain. So while it has its own consensus mechanism, it derives its security from Bitcoin, but gives it kind of more robust capabilities because Bitcoin's scripting language is limited by design. So it doesn't really enable smart contracts. So another chain had to be built to enable smart contracts.
That is right. Thank you very much for that. Byzantion then. So what is the origin story here? When did you guys, you might have explained it in the beginning, but let's go over it again. When did you start thinking about building an NFT marketplace?
I think in the beginning, we probably didn't even think about building an NFT marketplace. The way we got started is we actually built the first generative art project on top of Bitcoin. So it's called Mandelbrot's. So Mandelbrot's, different Mandelbrot's have come out on Ethereum since, but we did a generative art project on top of using stacks. So we were probably the second project to launch as far as like NFT collections go. And then we had a lot of success there, kind of a natural byproduct. And I guess at this time, right, smart contracts, SIP9, which is the NFT standard on top of stacks, had really just come out a month previously. There had been one other NFT project that had launched. The Clarinet testing framework for smart contracts in general had happened 2 months previously. So just to get an NFT project off the ground, you basically had to call up like the core engineers from Stacks to figure out kind of how everything worked. So we launched our project, and the natural byproduct is a lot of projects started reaching out to us to help them launch theirs. And then so we built out a minting platform for other artists, just helping them out. And then people want to start trading them. So we built our marketplace, and then it's just kind of continued to spiral since then.
Yeah, and it's interesting because, you know, NFTs obviously, I guess, started to really find, well, went ballistic pretty much in 2021, but I don't know, I wouldn't know what the percentage is in terms of how much of that activity is on the Ethereum chain, but I guess the majority of it. And then we've got, you know, smaller ecosystems on Solana, Cardano, and of course Stacks. But yeah, I mean, it would seem to me like it's, you guys obviously have to be, you know, really passionate believers in, firstly, obviously Bitcoin, but also the Stacks team and what they are doing to then go and decide to, you know, build what is already a speculative idea, build an NFT platform, but not do it on Ethereum, which would kind of be the easier path, but do it on Stacks, which, to be fair, is probably the harder path. Do you agree?
In some ways, yes, and in some ways, no. You know, with Ethereum, you're dealing with an established player like OpenSea, who does, you know, the majority of the volume on Ethereum. And yeah, you're right. Ethereum is the 1,000-pound gorilla in the room. And they're, I think, you know, if you look back kind of in the fall of 2021, winter of 2021, they were probably doing Ethereum NFTs probably accounted for 90% of the trading volume of all NFTs across chains. So yeah, there's a lot more activity there. But also, you know, as we saw when we were trying to build out our own project on Stacks, you know, there was no one really to help us to do it the right way and to conform to standards and to actually like build out, you know, have a marketplace where you could buy and sell these NFTs. So there was a void there, and people were wanting it. And a lot of the people in Stacks come from the Bitcoin ecosystem and haven't interacted much in, you know, other ecosystems. So they had kind of missed out on this whole, you know, NFT hype cycle that had happened over the spring, summer, and early fall. And we're excited to have access to NFTs on Stacks. So it is a smaller space. But then also when you look at, you know, Bitcoin capital and building on top of that, there's also, you know, a big opportunity there too that's interesting to us.
Yeah, I think that's a good way of framing it. The opportunity is certainly there. What kind of, I mean, one stumbling block, I suppose, even though it is an opportunity, because you know there are a lot of Bitcoiners out there in the world, and but not all of them are interested in NFTs yet. How can you kind of bridge that gap and get Bitcoiners to be interested in NFTs, but through, I guess, marketplaces such as yours?
Yeah, I think we think about it maybe a different way. I mean, I think one of the real beauties of kind of the Stacks community in general and the developers that we have here, one, it's very top heavy when it comes to technical talent within the ecosystem. And kind of everybody in this ecosystem really sees it as either like we're collaborative or we're co-opetition, right? So it's, you know, it's collaborative competition. Where we talk to our competitors, we talk to all the developers in the space all the time. And it is kind of this it's a really nice ecosystem to be a part of, especially as a developer. But to answer your question more directly, when you think about Bitcoiners and us being Bitcoiners, although we're not maximalists by any means, Bitcoiners in general, kind of the ethos is like, we love decentralization, right? And it's about decentralization. But at the end of the day, there is no Bitcoiner in the world who has ever bought Bitcoin at a decentralized exchange. And that's because we don't have a smart contract layer to do it. So all the Bitcoin that we buy, it's all going through centralization. And Stacks is kind of that key that unlocks decentralization to kind of get to kind of the dream that we want to get to, where we do have this decentralized finance world. And I think that is how you start to grow the space. It's really just communicating it at the end of the day.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's well said as well. And, the kind of the limited interactions I've had with the Stacks community, and I guess I've had a few, I've had a few people on the podcast and various people on. And yeah, it always has struck me that you're exactly right. It is very much based on a collaborative spirit. But if that's the case, so I think the other big Stacks NFT Marketplace is stacksnft.com, isn't it? So you guys are sort of, is it like friendly competition? You kind of help each other out, and I guess you're all just trying to grow the same ecosystem and support the same projects, right?
Exactly. I mean, Jamil and us are really good friends. We can't speak highly enough about him. And that's just, I think it's just that's one of the beauties, I think, about Web3 in general, and maybe your audience, one of the reasons they maybe have fallen in love with Web3 is when you think about being an entrepreneur in Web2, right? It's very cutthroat, right? You're splitting pies, it's established markets, you're trying to cut your percentage. But here in the dev community, like, we're all building open source. So, Plutus is probably one of the more prolific smart contract launchers on top of Stacks. So if there's been 2,000 smart contracts, Plutus has launched like 250 of them. But everything we do and every innovation that we make is open sourced immediately. Now, of course, there's a platform and that's closed source code, but the smart contracts that we develop are all in the open, and it is a collaborative effort between every player in the space to make sure that the smart contracts that are being launched are secured, and there's not exploits, and that we're working together to make that happen. I don't know, it's just a really amazing environment to be in.
Well, let's dig into that a little bit, Plutus. So, in terms of the smart contracts that you're creating, or how does Clarity differ from Solidity as a coding language, and how do you see this as, I guess, unique to the Stacks ecosystem? And talk about the security of those smart contracts and how it's underpinned by Bitcoin, and any other kind of, I guess, differentiations from the other Ethereum style smart contract platforms.
Yeah, so Clarity, one of the big advantages of it is it's non-compiled. So essentially what you see is what you get when you write your code. And so when someone writes a smart contract and then publishes it on mainnet, we can all go see that and learn from it. So if there's an interesting innovation in the space, instantly the whole community knows kind of how to replicate that. So it's a really good learning mechanism for developers, which, I think that takes time to gain momentum, but I think it can lead to really exponential growth for developers. I mean, that's kind of when we started out, that's how we learned, was we went and looked at the one smart contract NFT that had been deployed or the one smart contract for an NFT that had been deployed before Mandelbrot's. And we learned from that. And then we started asking other builders in the space. But that helps a lot. And it also helps prevent exploits. So we can all, us as a community of developers, we can compile all of the contracts that we've seen like potential exploits in and learn from that. So we all kind of know what the common exploits would be in certain contracts. So I think that's interesting. And then it's also a Turing incomplete language, so which differs from Solidity because there's just less. It's basically a more simple language, so there's less attack vectors, fewer attack vectors than there are on other languages like Solidity, where you can perform kind of attacks where you overload the contracts with certain function calls and contracts that could bring about an exploit if overloaded. So that's another advantage of it. But to me, the biggest advantage is that learning mechanism of it being non-compiled.
Very nice.
One thing to add there, maybe, and it's kind of security through clarity. Not to be, that's kind of a play on words I didn't mean, but Nassim Taleb talks a lot about this in like anti-fragile systems, right? So it's not saying that any one contract is more secure than anything on Solidity, but in aggregate, the contracts that are active on stacks are going to be more secure as a whole, because anytime an exploit is performed, everybody basically knows about it immediately and can perform that exploit, right? So you can see the exploit, you can see how the exploit worked because it's not compiled, and then the whole system can learn. So what you end up having is like any one contract can have a flaw in it, but if it does have a flaw, the whole system can learn from it. And so over time, you get a more robust system that just ends up being more anti-fragile.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah,
and sorry,
interestingly there, when there has been exploits in the past where because you can learn from it so quickly, you can actually perform the exploit before the hacker gets done, performing their exploit and prevent, a bad outcome from happening. And when the community is kind of rallying around that, so that's another interesting thing about the language.
Yeah, and speaking of language and plays on words, that is a nice play on words. Security by clarity. I guess, so you guys, I believe we mentioned that you are the #1 marketplace on Stacks. And look, I mean, I suppose there aren't a huge amount, but I'd love to understand that a bit more of that in context in terms of, I guess, the journey of Byzantion so far, like, what kind of metrics you can point to in terms of, just user growth, adoption, volume, anything like that. I mean, the wider market is down a little bit at the moment, and that's fine. But just, I'd like to understand a little bit more about how, marketplaces and important parts of the Stacks community are growing, because I have had Trevor from Stacks has been the Stacks accelerator. He's been on here before, and also Grace, who heads up CrashPunks, also with Trevor. I know those guys are doing great things for the Stacks ecosystem. So talk to me, kind of metrics. What are you watching?
Yeah, so this is kind of interesting. We like that this is the case in some ways, but we think that Stacks is flying under the radar volume-wise. So in February, for example, Byzantion did close to $2 million in revenue, or in GMV, and so that's actually bigger than any of the Tezos marketplaces. And Tezos is a well-known NFT ecosystem.
Yep.
So it was ahead of Hen and Object, and I think that would have put us, judging off of DAppRadar, that would have put us at like number 15 of marketplaces across all chains last month, and that puts Stacks as a whole kind of getting close to that top 10 ecosystems, as for NFTs as far as volume goes. So it's not really reported widely, but up there with some of the more notable marketplaces that you hear of.
Yeah, that's higher than I thought it would be. And what are let's shout out some of the I guess the top NFT collections on the marketplace at the moment. I'm not going to pick favorites. You guys probably don't want to pick favorites either, but go ahead, please.
Yeah, so I mean, the biggest one and the most successful one so far has been Megapont Ape Club, and they've just done a tremendous job of building out a community, and kind of, they were one of the earlier success stories in Stacks NFTs, and have done I guess over 2 million stacks in volume at this point. And then there's, Bitcoin Monkeys. That's another large one on Stacks. And they've done really interesting things as far as the community goes. kind of accomplish some firsts, like, staking your NFTs to earn fungible tokens on stacks. So those are the kind of the top two. Obsidian, we have any to add there?
I mean, there's like our favorite projects just from like art perspectives. Like CrashPunks did a great job as far as art goes, and then also Bitcoin Badgers. That's probably like our favorite. And and we're biased, right? We were one of the first NFTs and inside the marketplaces early, so we really got to know the communities and the builders. What I think is amazing just across the board, and maybe interesting to your listeners too, is these projects that are successful, the founders that are running these projects have been typically almost always very successful in previous positions on other companies. A lot of these are Web2 founders, right, who really understand the mechanics of like, how do you build a business? And then they're just applying that into the NFT space. Mark, who ran Megapont, and Zion, like Mark ran the largest KYC Web2 company or KYC company for fine art. So like Sotheby's auctions and, all the big fine art houses, they ran the company that all the KYC there. And I think that's what's interesting when you start to look at these NFT projects is really the teams behind them. And it's no different than the same way you evaluate companies on other chains, or the way you evaluate like a crypto chain, right? You're looking at the developers on the team and the developers that are building on top of the ecosystems. And that's how these like NFT communities and ecosystems are built as well.
Yeah, and look, I'm actually talking to Mark from Megapont Ape Club. He's coming on the show later this month, and we should give a shout out to Elahurf, who has hooked me up with Mark, and I think he hooked me up with you guys as well. So it's always appreciated. What about this kind of a? How would you describe the? I don't know, the NFT culture on stacks? Is there kind of like can you identify, how would you describe is there a kind of unique vibe that kind of goes across some of those different collections that are on stacks, if that makes sense?
I think, yeah, for sure. I mean, comparison is probably the best way. Plutus and I have both collected on kind of across chains. I think from a culture standpoint inside stacks, at this point, we're at the beginning of kind of our NFT cycle, right? Where everybody in stacks is early, and it's very much everybody's rooting each other on. Megapont helped launch Project Indigo, which was a very successful project, definitely top 5 success stories. A lot of people in that ecosystem have branched out and built their own. So the culture right now is very collaborative, and kind of everybody, rising tide rises all boats, which I think is a little bit different than what you're seeing, say, in the Ethereum ecosystem, which some of those cultures are starting to get a bit toxic, for lack of a better word. There's a lot of flipping. But I think here people want to support the teams. They want to support the artists that are building these projects. Now, I will say, like Tezos specifically, they've done an amazing job in the ecosystem world of attracting artists. There's some like special mechanics about Tezos of why artists are attracted there, just with low environmental impact, and they've built a great like art collection culture. And then you have Ethereum, who's built kind of this great PFP project culture, and there's a lot of art going on there as well. And then Stacks, I think, is more developer heavy, and kind of the projects that are succeeding are the projects are doing unique things on chain in a development space. And it just feels like these projects are run more like startups than, say, like a typical PFP project or kind of what you see in other chains. But Plutus might have something to add there as well.
Yeah, I would say it's a fun mixture too, because you have some people who came in from maybe the Solana and Ethereum ecosystems where they collected over there and were familiar with stacks. And when they saw NFTs starting to be built on stacks, they came over and started collecting here. So you have kind of some experienced collectors, but then you also have a lot of collectors that are new. And so it's fun getting to see the collaboration there too, where these experienced collectors who have kind of seen the success stories and the pitfalls of collections on other chains get to kind of help out these people that are newer to collecting, who have only ever really, been on Stacks and Bitcoin and hadn't had access to NFTs until recently. So it's a very just kind of like fun and collaborative and uplifting environment. And if you go into any of these Discord groups, you'll see that. It's a lot of, anytime people have questions, that people are more than happy to answer. And so it's very unique, especially when you kind of come from the Ethereum ecosystem.
Yeah, and look, I mean, not to drag on the Ethereum communities too hard, but I mean, I know what you guys mean, and especially when you see these new hyped projects spring up and launch their Discords, and you go in there and it's just a bit of a mess. And look, you guys know this better than I do, but if that's the case, obviously, if we look at things from a bit of a wider perspective in terms of the NFTs in general, obviously incredible bull market last year. Volumes are down a little bit at the moment. Floor prices are down a little bit across most collections. What do we think about where the market is, and are you concerned that there's too many new projects that are kind of, some are really low effort projects, some are almost outright scams, and it just dilutes the space. What do you see going forward? How do we fix some of this? Can it be fixed?
Yeah, I think I feel like I have a few viewpoints on this. I'm not as worried. I mean, I think like with any ecosystem in general, it takes time for the ecosystem to learn what's good and what's bad, and for people to continue raising the bar. So like ecosystems just, I think, evolve and become more robust over time. So you definitely have like very low end projects. You definitely have scams, and those things just kind of fall away. And then people, as the teams learn that are running the projects, and also as investors, when they decide where to put money, they start to look for, higher and higher quality. So I think that's an amazing attribute. And, Stacks is young. Because Stacks came a little bit later into the NFT game, Bitcoin is just late to DeFi in general, and smart contracts in general. They've been able to learn from some of the other systems. So it does feel like it's developing faster here. But I do think going into the next year, what we're going to start to see a lot more of is utility tokens. So I think like Proof, XYZ on Ethereum, run by Kevin Rose, has done a great job of pioneering in that space. If you're talking to Mark later, they just launched Apes together. And it's more of, okay, what else can we do with these tokens and these communities? Because at the end of the day, especially the PFP communities, there's the art world, right? And I think there's a lot of groundbreaking things that are being done in the traditional art world. And then there's the community world, right, where a lot of these PFP sit. And I think especially the kind of more tech founder focused teams that are running PFP projects are trying to realize, okay, we have this amazing community, and what does it look like to build for them? And if you take like Kevin Kelly's whole approach of 1,000 true fans, you can start to do some amazing things around curation and just like Apes Together. They're building out API platforms for NFT creators and NFT projects, and making sure other NFT projects have the tooling necessary to do it. And you get access to that if you start to buy that token. And I really do think 2022, we're going to see a lot more of these utilities tokens come into play, and they're going to operate a lot like businesses, but with just very hardcore user bases. So I'm really excited to see that.
Yeah, very nice.
Yeah.
Sorry, and Obsidian, please go for gold.
Yeah, no, I think to reiterate, I think it would be nice for every person's Ethereum or Stacks or or Solana to go to only the high quality projects and not not to the rugs that are out there. But I do think that's part of the evolution. I think as builders in the space and as people that are more experienced in the space, we should kind of take the responsibility to help people out when we can and point them in the right direction and help educate them. It's always fun when you get the opportunity to do that. And I see people doing that on all chains. So, it's fun, seeing people kind of be able to learn and be part of that evolution process. And, I think that this is only the beginning. Volumes may be down right now, but as Obsidian was saying, there's so many applications for NFTs that we're only going to see, a more and more diverse set of applications that it's super exciting to think about. So I think there's a long ways to go, and there's still only like 1 to 2 million people involved in NFTs right now on any given month. So we're still early.
We're still early, and yes, that was Plutus speaking there. Sorry, I got getting my names mixed up, gentlemen. I guess as we start to finish off this part of the podcast, let's just talk through, I guess, the roadmap, the future, however you want to frame it, the long-term vision. What's the long-term vision that you guys have for Byzantion, and feel free to go into the kind of the nitty-gritty, what's coming up in the pipeline soon, but then the longer-term vision, but also how that plays out in an even longer time frame in terms of how do these marketplaces, different chains, do they start to interoperate together into the future, or do they stay separate ecosystems? How do you think about all this?
We're so early, right? We'll see where we go. For Byzantion in general, if we just look at our roadmap for the next 6 months to a year, and then things start to change after that. We have a brand new website coming out on Monday that'll launch, so we're just kind of upgrading the whole system all the way around. Byzantion so far, right, like the marketplace and providing specifically like investors the best search and discovery experience, and kind of historical context on NFTs possible, that's our bread and butter. But a lot of people probably don't see it at the surface, but it's pretty well known inside the community, as we also build out API infrastructure for other builders in the space to build on top of. From being fairly early into the space, learning just how to aggregate data and track it and make it usable, we've started to build out like pretty robust APIs, which some of the more notable projects on Stacks are building on top of. So the Megapont Marketplace is running on top of our API, and just a lot of the projects in the space. And we're going to continue to build out dev tooling, one, just to make it easier for the developers to come in after us to get up and running and get started, and kind of just pay it forward a little bit, right? We've learned a lot of things. We don't have to rebuild everything. That's a nice thing about Web3. Web2, just in general, was amazing in that you can go on GitHub, you have NPM, you have all the package managers, and you get new packages. But it's even more accelerated in Web3, where we really don't have to build the same thing twice. And so one of our core focuses long-term is building out kind of the infrastructure layer for anybody who wants to get involved in the space to start building on top of. As far as the conversation goes with, the other chains and everything that's developing there, I do think long-term we start to see a lot of convergence. I would imagine if I was going to place a bet, for like 3 to 5 years from now, is a lot of these chains start to get abstracted away, because every chain is kind of specialized, right? There's a reason you would use Ethereum over Bitcoin, or you'd use Solana over something else, or Tezos over another thing. They start to specialize, but you can get that specialization and kind of abstract it away to another layer. And so if you think just like how Web 1 and Web 2 developed, right? You got the like base infrastructure players, you've got Cisco, like with routers, and then, you just start to build on top and build on top and build on top. And, you don't think about the router, you don't think about your ISP that often, or you don't think about the DNS layer and kind of that whole infrastructure that's going on, just to set up your domain very often. You do when you have to set up a new website, but that's about it. There's like all these layers. And so when I look at just crypto in general, is, Bitcoin pioneered, then you had Ethereum with smart contracts, and these are all the layers, and we're going to continue to build on top of them, and they'll continue to get abstracted away. So, even like, Bitcoin in a lot of ways, like with Strike, you can download Strike, you can put in your credit card, you can send money anywhere in the world, 0 fees, and you can get it out in whatever currency you want to. At the end of the day, like Bitcoin is pretty much abstracted away there. If you travel around Central America, there's been a lot of talk, just different countries switching over to Bitcoin. But if you go in, right, and you talk about Bitcoin, they probably don't know what Bitcoin is, but they know what Strike is, just like we know what Visa is. That's just the payment layer that they're using. And I think we'll continue to see that as just crypto in general develops.
Very nice. Very nice. Thank you for those very articulate thoughts. Okay. Yeah, exciting future. It's just going to be, a journey. We'll have to see, but for now, let's go to a very quick break, and then we will come back. We'll have some fun. We'll finish off with the very famous Crypto Conversation Hot Take Round.
In today's crypto market, the team at Brave New Coin are the sector's leading builders of custom crypto indices. BNC's powerful indexing engine draws on Brave New Coin's premium data to calculate high-frequency intraday and end-of-day indices for a wide range of index products. BNC's custom indices help you to gain exposure to the crypto assets class and track your performance against the market without having to become a stock picker. Not sure what you need? A Brave New Coin consultant can help you assess your requirements. Contact BNC today to find out more.
All right, we're back, and I'm with Plutus and Obsidian from the Byzantion NFT Marketplace. If you want stacks, or if you want NFTs on stacks, on Bitcoin, go to Byzantion. Simple as that. Gentlemen, as you may or may not know, I like to finish each podcast with a quick round of crypto conversation hot takes. Are you up for it?
For sure.
Let's do it.
All right, gentlemen, I'm sure you know how this works. Just, quick, snappy answers, hot take style. Say whatever you want. Just a bit of fun. Controversially, I'd love to hear from you both. Let's go with you first, Plutus. Where do you sit on the Bitcoin maximalist to multi-chain, multi-coin opportunist spectrum?
Well, I've been talked down from the Bitcoin maximalist side, or kind of come down from that over the past year and a half. Really, my foray into NFTs last year is what made me kind of convinced that we're going to live in a multi-chain world. And when you start thinking about the network effects that have already been built on Ethereum and even Solana to an extent now, I just don't see there being a winner-take-all chain. So I'm a reformed maximalist, I guess, and believer in the multi-chain world.
But still a Bitcoiner at heart, I'm sure.
Still a Bitcoiner at heart. Can't take that away.
All right, Obsidian.
I'm definitely a multi-chainer. I mean, I think at the end of the day, a lot of this does get abstracted to where you may not even know kind of what chain you're transacting on, especially with DEXs. I mean, just like the way Strike works, where I can upload to USD, I can send money to you and you can get it out and type up. I think a lot of these exchanges, with the advent of DEXs, with Bitcoin through stacks finally getting access to DEXs, a lot of kind of the coin that you're using is you can pay in Bitcoin and you can get an Ethereum NFT maybe eventually. I see that as a possibility for sure. And so a lot of that layer just gets abstracted away to where this might not even be a conversation 5 years from now.
Yeah, no doubt. All right. Plutus, what would you say is your firmest conviction, crypto opinion?
Firmest conviction is that everything eventually gets tokenized. This is one for both Obsidian and I, but we think both on the fungible token and non-fungible token side, we're going to see mortgages get tokenized, court records get tokenized. Pretty much everything that you can think of that's recorded become tokenized. And think, NFTs will play a big part in that.
Yep, tokenize all of the things. All right, Obsidian, Bill Gates famously said that we tend to overestimate what we can accomplish in 2 years and underestimate what we can accomplish in 10. 10 years is a heck of a long time, especially in crypto. Man, whatever you like, DeFi, blockchain, NFTs, what does it look like in 10 years' time?
10 years, I mean, this isn't going to be original thought, but I've spent a lot of time thinking about this. I think Bajali is probably the one who introduced this thought to me. But I do think every asset trades against every other asset in an open kind of liquid marketplace. And I think that's pretty revolutionary. But
he had a really good term for that. Do you remember, what is it? The marketplace, I don't know, the marketplace of everything, something like that.
The marketplace, or it's, the order book of everything.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. Yeah, sorry I interrupted there, but yeah, no, I love that. And I probably agree. All right. Plutus, William Gibson famous sci-fi author. You'll be very familiar with his quote when he said that the future is already here, it's just not evenly distributed. With that in mind, can you think of an example of the future being here right now, but most people just aren't really aware of it?
Oh man, there are so many things here, but I think one simple way of thinking about it is just, well, I'm going to do two examples, and they're both pretty simple. But building on Web3 is, Obsidian and I have looked at each other several times as we've built Byzantion and just been in disbelief that, like what all it enables, how you can have an identity, a portable identity that travels with you, across all the different platforms you use and all the platforms that, that you're on, like Byzantion, can actually see, how you've interacted with other platforms in a still, private way. I think that's super interesting as far as building goes, and it's just kind of hard to even think about going back to Web 2 and building out authentication and building out your own like user database and everything after having built on Web 3. The other is, and this is very simple and not new at all, but I was talking to Obsidian about this last night, just with, with all of the things that are going on, like with Canada, regulating, exchanges and halting transactions on bank accounts. It's still amazing to me that, how convincing the technology is when you just take your money and finances into your hands and put them on your own wallets. And it's, again, nothing new or revolutionary. This is the whole reason we have crypto. But I think that is something where you see the future not evenly distributed, because they're, once you see that, you can't unsee it. And that's just a way better way of holding and transferring and storing your assets. And once everyone experiences it, you can't unexperience it.
I love it. All right. Obsidian, time to zoom out, time to get a little bit weird just for a second. What do you see as the long-term future for the human race? Do you see dystopia or utopia?
Yeah, I think that's a beautiful question. I think you can go two routes. Again, these aren't going to be completely original thoughts, but I think just for some background, I've probably traveled constantly for the last 5 years. So I've lived in probably 30 countries over the last 5 years since I graduated from university. And simultaneously, up until last week, I spent a lot of time in Ukraine. So it's very sad to see what's going on there. Love that country. But I think the long-term future is we have more peace than we've ever had, right? It's kind of the first time in history where countries don't have to take over other countries and get the resources. Where I think for the most part, both through business and through countries, this might be the optimistic side of me, is people have learned, okay, we can actually grow this pie instead of cutting this pie. We can actually provide value to the world in that way. I think at the same time, we have this, so it seems like the world is becoming closer to utopia, but we also have this underlying risk that's greater than ever, right? You just take nuclear in general, nuclear weapons. So we have the most peace we've ever had, and then we also have the most risk in the system that we've ever had. I do think the world is getting better in a lot of ways, and it'll probably continue to develop there, but it's not a perfect system, right? You're gonna have hiccups. It's kind of anti-fragile, but the nice thing, I just think about humans in general, is we have this amazing capacity to learn from other people's failures. And over time, you get stronger and stronger systems. And I think we'll continue to see that. And that may be like naively optimistic, but I think you can see a lot of evidence for it, but without being naive and saying, okay, there is still a lot of risk in the system, and we just have to all be adults and not click that red button. So
yeah, that's that's always the tricky bit, isn't it? It's like that big red button. It's like Yeah, let's stay away from it. All right, let's close this out, gentlemen. The final question, we'll put it to you both. Let's go with you first, Plutus. What is your favorite science fiction book, film, TV show, or universe?
Oh, or universe. This is going to be pretty unoriginal, but it was important to me in getting into NFTs and understanding them. So Ready Player One to me probably won't be my favorite of all time, but to me, in kind of this stage of life and where we are with Byzantion, read it a year and a half ago, a little bit late to the party, but it's what really helped me understand NFTs and made it very intuitive.
Yeah, nice. I'm sure it's a common story, but love that. All right, Obsidian.
Probably my favorite sci-fi book, and just universe in general. Ender's Game. I think the best book in that whole series is Ender's Shadow, which follows Bean, which is kind of like his right-hand guy. But specifically about that book and more at a personal level, is that one specifically really taught me the importance of, like, every problem is there to teach you something. And I think that book really embodies that, both from a leadership standpoint and just some life principles. Also, ironically, I think a lot of what plays out in that book between him and his siblings, where, not to get too deep into the story, but his brother, who's not a great guy, and his sister, where he goes out up into space and he's in training, and then his siblings are back on Earth. And they start to form these online identities inside forums and actually become like political figures when they're like 13, 14. Because of their anonymous or pseudonymous identities, they're able to build reputations based on merit rather than age. And I think we're seeing that play out in Web3. I think one of the most beautiful things about Web3 and talking to different artists that have launched on our platform, we had an artist who's from Hyderabad. I spent a lot of time in Hyderabad, India, and he had some very successful launches, and it's not about money at all, but he probably made more money in a month than 99.9% of anybody that's living in that city. And I think one of the very interesting things about Web3 is because nobody cares where you're from, and nobody cares what you look like, and nobody cares anything about your identity. It's all, for the most part, it's based on merit. I think it unlocks a lot of opportunity in the world and kind of evens the playing field for, if you're a talented person with a lot of smarts and you're wise and you've got some merit, you can make it here. And it's just, I hope it stays that way, right? We got to protect that culture, but that is definitely the way it is right now.
I love it. So nicely said. And yeah, you're exactly right. And yeah, just this idea of kind of pseudo-anonymous on-chain reputation is so powerful, and it's so new and original and kind of different from, just centuries and millennia of ingrained, human instinct. So it's going to be fascinating to see how this all plays out in the future metaverse, gentlemen. But we have come to the end of the show, so there's nothing else really to do except hand the metaphorical microphone back to you both. Just any closing thoughts, shout outs, tell the people where they can go to find you if you're on Twitter, anything like that. And, please make the case for Byzantion and where people should go and why they should start collecting NFTs on Stacks. Plutus, start with you.
Yeah, if you're interested in NFTs on Stacks and getting into an ecosystem early, go to Byzantion.xyz. That's where you'll find our marketplace, and you can also follow us on Twitter at Byzantion_XYZ. And then I'm at Plutus_BTC on Twitter. That's where we hang out. But yeah, I think the fun thing about Stacks is you're in these projects so early. You get to talk with all the founders of these projects, and it's just a really tight-knit community. So if that's something you want to be part of, you should definitely check it out.
You can find me at Obsidian BTC on Twitter, and of course, Byzantion.xyz. I mean, really the case, I think that this is the big case for stacks in general is it is the community. That's a lot of what Web3 is about, but we have just the whole system has incredible engineers who are very open to talking. You can ping anybody. So if you want to get involved, feel free to jump into our Discord. We can point you in the right direction and kind of introduce you to some communities you want to be a part of. And we'd love to see you guys.
Awesome. This has been great. Thanks very much, gentlemen. All the best, and bye for now. All right, there you go. That was Plutus and Obsidian from Byzantion. I enjoyed that. It's always, I was just saying to them, it's always hard when you get on a call with a couple of people, you don't know much about them, you've never met them, you never talked to them, and then you basically just within 2 minutes press record and you're doing a podcast. So yeah, sometimes it takes a while to warm up. Like I felt like it took a while for me to warm up, but by the time we hit the very famous crypto conversation hot take round, everyone's having fun. We've got some good thoughts. I think those two guys, Obsidian and Plutus, very, very smart guys with a lot of wisdom. So yeah, I enjoyed that. Thanks to my man Eli Herf for hooking this up. He's a good buddy of mine. Always has some good guest suggestions. I think we're going to do a podcast together, actually. He's going to come on the show himself. Most of you don't know who he is, so doesn't matter, but you will after he comes on the show. Anyway, that is today's show. Thank you for listening. Don't forget to subscribe to the Crypto Conversation in whatever podcast app you are using. Please give us a 5-star rating and wherever you are in the world, because Apple iTunes podcast app, it kind of segments those ratings to your specific location. So there's a lot of places we don't have a rating. So if you've listened to the end of the show, I don't know if you have, but if you have, then obviously you've enjoyed it. So please, give us a 5-star rating. We'd appreciate it. But hey, we are gone. That's it for today. Thanks very much for listening. This was the Crypto Conversation for Brave a New Coin.